This is a real article. This actually happened in Canada.
Who's it? What's
Canadian press? They produced it. This was CP News, like North Shore News, CP News.
Okay.
They're the ones who picked it up. But here's the red flags, right? Red flags of the scarcity mindset, right? I'm terrible with money. I'm scared that I'll never be able to retire. I should be doing a better job or should be doing more. That's not because the money has been printed under your feet and they've pulled the rug on you. No. It's in your head. It's just in your head, right? So that's what you got to do, right? You got to make sure that you unpack all of the anxiety that you have, and just think differently about it, and it will all go away. It will all.
I saw something about this last week where it was a more like official channel or something. Like I saw something about.
The governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff, actually told people, first of all, he said, whatever the prime minister is telling you that Canada can replace America as a trade partner, they said, he said, well, that's not true. Like, it can't happen. There's a bit of an animosity between them, by the way, because Tiff used to work. He was the deputy governor under Mark Carney. And it sounded like at the time he didn't get Carney's blessing to become the governor of the Bank of Canada. That's why he went to the Rotman School of Business for a few years and only came back and was appointed by Trudeau. So not Carney, obviously. So apparently there was a little bit of animosity between them. But I mean, that's, as inside baseball as I can get for the Canadian central banks. But then it was in that same press conference where the governor in that press conference said Canadians are going to have to accept a lower standard of living. That's part of this change. He wasn't unclear about it. He straight up said that Canadians need a different mindset about their standard of living, and that would be the only appropriate way to go forward. So that happened. That happened while I think you were in Switzerland, something like that.
That's funny because like that's like a self-development pillar. That whole thing that they're pitching us there is it's like what you learn about when you try to like read books about like mindset and self-development. Like, it's true, you shouldn't have a scarcity mindset, but
it's also in the Bible. I mean, Jesus, of the 10 things he says, this is one of them. Jesus literally says, do you think I love birds more than you? And look at the birds, they're taken care of, right? Just don't worry about it. I don't think they're going with the biblical one here. I don't.
But the funny thing is, like, I was thinking about this because I heard about this last week somewhere, and I was thinking about it, like entrepreneurs, and I joined the coaching programs last year. I'm still in a couple coaching programs. I try to work on my own mindset because, in a way, actually, like I over-focused on Bitcoin as time preference, like elongating my time preference and thinking way too much about going far in the future with my decisions. And actually it kind of like became this habit that I would be way too in the future, and I guess that's lowering your time preference. Is that the lowering? I always confuse low and high. So delayed gratification, right? And I would, Bitcoin, like when you start to understand Bitcoin and value and scarcity and inflation and the kind of consumerism and all that stuff that we live under now, and how you should just save your Bitcoin, don't spend it. The more Bitcoin you have, the better you're going to be in the future. I kind of like was in that mindset so long that it prevented me from like enjoying the present moment as much. So I kind of had to do some work on myself to kind of get out of the future and get back to the present. And a lot of people get this just from PTSD of inflation. It's like things in the past, like why didn't I invest in Bitcoin? Why didn't I take this job? Why did I take this loan? Whatever. A lot of people fear or they relive and they ruminate on the things that they've done in the past and the decisions they made in the past, and they live too far in the past, and that prevents them from being in the present. So these journalists and politicians and stuff and media people, like I saw like some of the conservative media folks making fun of this, thing about how they're trying to get us to avoid talking about inflation. But even the folks that understand it from the mindset perspective, they know, okay, the real problem is the inflation. It's the government printing too much money. It's so hard for them to even get into the point where they really understand that even all the time that they're spending on trying to get this political party to rule them, that really that's not going to solve their problems either. Like, there's still going to be inflation. There's still going to be money printing. It's just now the party that you cheered for is doing the money printing. So it's like, man, there's a whole lot to this whole scarcity mindset thing. And in some ways, it's like outsourcing your confidence to the party or the politician is a scarcity mindset in your own worth and your own, ability to. Oh, you're muted there.
To even be part of a political party, it's like you need self-help now. Like, you can't just go and be a member of a political party because of some, obligation to give back to your society. It's like, you also, if you're going to believe them, you need self-help. You need a counselor.
Well, I feel like because inflation is like, yeah, I needed it in a way because I was pissed off about when I learned about central banking, inflation, and Keynesianism and all this, the history of taxes and money and stuff, 15 years ago. I got down this deep rabbit hole of like conspiracies and, I started super, too far down the deep end. And then I needed to be like, okay, I got to refocus back on what's going to make my life good. Like what's going to help me because there's some of this is like, yeah, this is an activist thing to be in Bitcoin and to be trying to educate people and fix the system and fix the money, fix the world or whatever. But if you focus too much on that, you go the other way. You're like living in the future too much and you're not able to enjoy the present and stuff.
Here's I agree 100%. There's a frame that I heard recently that this reminds me of, and I've been applying it. It sort of hasn't left my mind for like 2 weeks now, and I'll test it out on you and see what you say. And it comes from Scott Adams, where he wrote this book called Reframe Your Brain. It's all these things that aren't true. They're just reframes. It's not about true. Okay. They're not arguments. It's just you say something, and if it's going to lead you down this bad path, well, try a different way to understand it. It's not about truth, right? And so the one he used was this, and I think it applies exactly to what you're saying. He said, we all, of course, we value ourselves, right? Like we are self-interested, and Bitcoin underlines that to begin with. We our own motivations, our own self-interest. But where we can take it too far, especially as Bitcoiners, is become very precious about ourselves. Like we're the most valuable thing in our lives. We're the most valuable thing going. And he says what that ends up creating is like you're basically holding art. He says, like, just if you want to go cross the street, but you are the thing and your opinions are so valuable that you're going to be a bit stressed out about crossing the street. Better think of yourself as a potato, right?
I love
Even if you're good at stuff,
yeah,
in the end you're a potato, right? You're not that important. The world will move on. Like Bitcoin will be fine, and
stay humble, stack sats.
That's
right?
what I wanted to get at. Yes, in the end, the stay humble, stack sats thing applies here, because it's like we are. Andreas Antonopoulos is a potato. Like if he died today, Bitcoin would be. I love the guy, so don't want that. But I'm just saying, even the most important Bitcoin event, Michael Saylor passed away today. I mean, people would be shocked, but I even saw that quote going around on the internet today about Tom Cruise saying, if you knew how quickly people actually forget dead people, you would change your mind about how you live your life. Because
interesting, yeah.
How quickly they're forgotten and how quickly they are just irrelevant. So we're all potatoes. Yeah. And we got to stay humble, and we got to stack sats, and that Bitcoin will do what it's going to do. If you're here, if I'm here, whatever, right? We're not all carrying the Mona Lisa. Yeah. Most of us have a potato in our hands, and that's why enough.
That's why I go on Clubhouse still every once in a while and have a chat with John Seth and the guys, just so that I can get my ego back in check, because it's a good ego gauntlet you go through when you're going Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Make you feel like an idiot really quickly.
Well, people who are not feeling like idiots, of course, is our prime minister. He's pretty sure he's not a. I can't mind read, but I don't hear him talking about what a potato he is. And so he's unveiled the 6 nation building projects for economic resilience. It's not going over so well. Okay. So this was the whole point of electing this guy. We're going to move fast. We're going to build. We're going to do great stuff. Right. And what is it? It's a bunch of re-announced projects from bygone years. None of it's new. It's all a scam. It's going to cost everybody 7,700 Canadian trash tokens. Most of the stuff was already announced at other times. None of it is going to be, not in none of it is still there, but none of it is going to be in Alberta. So Alberta gets none of it. And 2 in British Columbia, all stuff we've seen before. None of this is at all new stuff. So Liberal Prime Minister, so-called nation building projects that were announced yesterday completely ignore Alberta. Take the hint, Danielle Smith, and I think I have one more person. Yeah, here's another. Alberta got 0 in Mark Carney's second wave of nation-building projects. This is the biggest strategic mistake he's made so far. You can't sideline the province that feeds your economy, fuels your country, and keeps your lights on. So whole bunch of reactions to this, and indeed, we're seeing here exactly what we've been warning about, that none of this stuff was going to forward in any relevant way. Canada's major projects announcements are a national embarrassment, an economic hostage release program that tells the world just how uninvestable Canada has become under the Liberal Party. And indeed, that's all arrogance, ineptitude. You get it, right? The whole deal. So it looks like it was all a scam, and nothing here is going to help most Canadians. So what next? What next? It looks like they're not building anything, and the inertia of Canada is there. So what, the idea here being that it's certainly the case at this point that there won't be political deliverance for Canada. It doesn't look like anyone, the time has already gone. I don't think, even if there was an election, and it looks like there's been floor crossing as well in the past week, where a couple of conservatives have joined the Liberals. So they have an even stronger bench now, and there's less of an ability for the Conservatives to throw a vote of no confidence. So we're probably not going to get elections before
I
Christmas.
don't know if you saw this. I didn't really pay attention too much to it, but apparently I saw some of the folks that we talk about sometimes on the show. It just came up in my Twitter feed. Apparently there was an opportunity to actually call an election. There was some kind of vote that was going through that Elizabeth May and the NDP and the Bloc were all against the Liberals on, and the Conservatives ended up siding with the Liberals and preventing a non-confidence vote. So is that, do you know anything about that? Is that true? I thought I saw it from like a reputable
I bet you it's true. Yeah. I think it had to do with some of that floor crossing. People were saying, I think, that they weren't ready to go to elections. So it was more of a panic, but that they're not ready to go to elections, I think, is proof positive that they're not a true opposition. And just even to, let's jump ahead to the ostrich cull, because you've got a personal anecdote with that, I believe. And
I don't know.
You do. The guy
okay.
really running it is Viva Fry.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So Viva Fry has been covering this pretty closely. The government's goal was to steal the research this farm was engaged in. So these are all rumors. I don't know anything about the eggs, and they said that they were antibodies and that there was some genetic testing going on, or that there was some therapeutic testing going on with ostriches, and that's why there was all of this intent to cull these ostriches. So that's what he's saying here: cause the spread of disease, and then allow their pharmaceutical bedfellows to use the stolen research for their financial benefit in response to the disease. The government helped spread terrorism, Viva Fry said. Now, Viva Fry has been especially hard on Poliver throughout all this, because apparently Poliver hasn't even mentioned this once. Not even a single time. He's just not even bringing it up. So Viva Fry, of course, you ran into him over in Lugano. So tell us a bit about Lugano, Viva Fry, and all this stuff.
Yeah, that was good actually to see him there. He was interviewing some Bitcoin folks. He was interviewing some folks from Rumble, and Lugano was it was just inspiring to see what they're building there. You know, they have that's where the Satoshi statue was unveiled 2 years ago, whenever it was, and the mayor of Lugano is super into Bitcoin, and Tether and Blockstream and Fulgur Ventures and um, you know some more companies in Bitcoin are kind of like headquartering in this space.
Plan B.
The Plan B space, yeah, it's a building that they bought. It used to be a bank, and it's right in the middle of this like central location in Lugano. And Lugano is like, it's like it has the infrastructure of something like New York City or some big Chinese mega city or something like that in terms of like beautiful and high tech. A lot of money was invested into this place, you could tell, but it's like on this amazing waterfront with these beautiful mountains. And there's just something special about the place because you feel safe. It's a small city with like a large city vibe. But then, you know, at nighttime, everybody's gone home to have supper and there's nobody on the streets. And it's not like homeless people everywhere and sirens and stuff. It's literally just like this incredible high quality city that's asleep. And you can just walk into these public bathrooms, use the bathroom, and not be afraid you're going to have to like duck for cover when someone runs in behind you. And it's like all stainless steel bathrooms and stuff. Anyways, insane spot, like very wealthy area. Price of a cup of coffee was 15 Canadian cuck bucks. So also very expensive to live there. And Lugano's been quietly adopting Bitcoin through like a top-down approach because Tether's just buying businesses and spending tons of money and building the POW space. They got like this amazing gym in the basement of the POW space that I worked out at with Rockstar Dev and Mir and some other Bitcoiners. And they got a proof of stake restaurant next inside the building there, next to the co-working space, STEAK. Steakhouse just opened up. So they sponsored the event, and there was like Bitcoin balloons flying over the city, and they did a drone show over the lake, and it's just an incredible, beautiful place. And I had heard about Plan B from Willy Woo, actually. Yeah, somebody's just talking there in the chat about the palm trees in the mountains, and that was shocking to me because I went up to the top of the mountain and met a whole bunch of other Bitcoiners who had just so happened to kind of also do it at the exact same time, and they were going up to the top of the mountain to have a look at things and up these trolleys, and you could pay for the trolley ride with Bitcoin. And it's not like there's signs everywhere in Lugano that's like Bitcoin accepted here. It's just like a quiet adoption of Bitcoin. You know, maybe a third of the places that I asked if they'd accepted Bitcoin, they did. Somebody was telling me they bought something at McDonald's with Bitcoin. So it's just like an inspiring thing to see Giacomo Zucco and the team there. There's a big team there building the Citadel in Lugano. And if the Citadel was a real thing, like I think this is kind of like what it would look like. Places like Bitcoin Beach, places like the Lugano adoption, Bitcoin Jungle, all these like physical spots where
Proto
Bitcoin,
citadels. You can call them proto citadels.
yeah. So Viva was there, and I was watching him do his live stream, and I had noticed that he had followed me. So I was like, "Oh, interesting." He because I kind of engage with him a little bit. I'm not on Twitter as much anymore, but he doesn't follow a lot of people. So I'm like, "Oh, I wonder what it was that he followed me for." So after he was done his thing, I went up to him and I was like, "Hey man, like, good to meet you. This is weird, but like you just recently followed me. I'm just kind of curious why. What was it?" And he's like, "What? Who are you? Like, why did I follow you?" So it became this kind of brain worm. He was trying to figure it out, and we were kind of going back and forth, like, is it potentially this? Is it, I know Nolan Bowerly, Nolan. He's like, "Oh yeah, I know Nolan. He's the first guy to ever tell me about Bitcoin. I wish I bought Bitcoin when he told me about it." And but he's like, "No, it's not that. It's not that." And I was like, "Oh, could it be?" I was replying to some of your tweets about the ostriches or Pierre Polyev. Like, I'm a big fan of Pierre Polyev. And he's like, "No, it's not really that. It's not really that." And it turns out it was actually, he texted me the next day. He gave me a cell because he's like, "Dude, I got to connect with you because, we're here and I followed you. And now I'm curious why the hell was it? Because I don't remember." And we talked a little bit about the awards, the proof of work awards that I want to do. Still want to do that. So I was getting his advice on that, like how does he think we should go about doing that and stuff. And then he was just really curious, like, why would I even do that? Like, why would I give Bitcoin to people for their work during the election? Is it something that, like, I'm afraid that if people don't get Bitcoin, like these influential people don't understand Bitcoin, then Bitcoin's price is going to go down? And I was like, no, dude, it's nothing like that. It's like, I feel bad for you guys. I feel bad that you guys are spending so much of your time and energy in this thing, and like really what you could be doing is just saving in Bitcoin, and like that is the actual solution to all the things that piss you off. And you deserve, like, all you guys deserve to be protected from the chaos of inflation and monetary debasement. And it's got, I don't even need the credit for it. It's not like I don't want to be like, okay, I'll give you this if you come on my show or whatever. So he was just kind of like taken aback by that. He was just kind of like, what the heck would Bitcoiners do that for? And it was actually funny because it's the same thing that Jeff Evely had the response to when he was on our show. He's just like kind of wondering, like, why would they do this? Like, what's the reasoning behind this? But
he was just on O'Keefe, huh? He was just on O'Keefe.
I saw that, yeah. It turns out that Viva actually texted me the next day. He's like, I figured out what it was. It was because of the Nova Scotia fire bans. You said you would help Jeff Evely out, and that caused me to want to look into you a little bit and follow you. So I was like, oh, interesting, cool. So kind of a connection on All Out podcast connection.
Well, let's get him on the show. Let's come and let's have him here sometime. We'll trash some Canada stuff. He's a refugee like me, so he's down in Florida now.
Yeah, I know. I was a little hard on him that last time when we talked about him, and I'm like, oh, he left. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, oh, well, a lot of people leave. It's just the self.
He had no choice. No, he ran for, he threw his hat in the ring here in the 2021 elections for Maxime Bernier. And it's too Nazi adjacent for Canadians, even though he's a big Jew. It's so Nazi adjacent. So yeah, he got excommunicated.
Self-preservation, right?
He was excommunicated.
Yeah, and I don't like Jeff Booth just left, right? So it's like,
we
love Jeff Booth.
Choice. Yeah, no choice. And you got to know both of these guys are urbanized. I'm different, like, see it to me, but I'm really a rural Quebecer, and where I am rurally on the Vermont border and all that stuff, it's just a different scenario compared to what these guys have to look out for. They have to be careful of a lot. It's just, there's no other place for them to go, whereas I have these rural places that are, still safe and still easy and all that compared to what we're used to. So those are both, I would say. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking about this morning, actually, this ostrich farm thing, because I was thinking back to when I first, I've seen him and others be critical of Pierre Poilievre for not talking about the ostriches and not following the ostrich farm thing. And I'm like a bit maybe too empathetic in the way I put myself in people's shoes. And I'm like, if I was Pierre Poilievre and I have all these issues that people care about, you can't talk about all of them. You can't pay attention to all of them. I know people want to just even say something about it, but it's like, for me personally, I chose to completely block this out of my spectrum. Like, I don't want to know anything about the ostriches. I mean, it's fine to talk about it on the podcast or whatever, but I don't want my mind polluted with another depressing story about how the state comes in and kills things. Like, that's just too, like, that's the story that we're trying to fix. So I'm trying to, like, think about it myself personally, and I know a lot of people think like this. There's just certain topics that are just like too depressing or too negative that I don't want that in my head. So I'm just going to avoid looking at it, paying attention to it. And it was like back when I got into, when I first found out about Ron Paul and watched the movie Freedom to Fascism by Aaron Russo, where Ron Paul was in it. And it was talking about the history of the Federal Reserve, the Jekyll Island, the creation of the Fed, and income tax, and all these things that are unconstitutional and all this stuff, right? I started getting down the rabbit hole of Herm the Frog's gay guy. What's his name again?
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. Yeah, I started like getting down the Alex Jones rabbit hole, and I was like, there's a lot of good information that I learned from listening to Alex Jones as a
He's the
20-something
man.
year old,
He's the man.
but then it got to the point where I was listening to his live stream at the time as a radio show, and he's like always talking about these depressing things that are happening. Like there's always something like this happening in terms of the state against the people. And they turn it into this big thing that I found myself just being too glued to these stories. Like there was this one story about like a farmer or rancher or whatever who was letting his cows or his whatever livestock graze on state land, and there's some law in the Constitution that allows you to do that, and ATS didn't want them there or something, so they came in and they like killed the animals, and they were like shooting at the farmers and all this stuff, and it was this big huge thing, and I was like drawn into this, and I realized like wait, this is just like never gonna stop. Like there's always gonna be this. It's almost like ambulance chasing in a way. It's like fear porn or something like that, that sometimes folks like Alex Jones or influencers, whatever, it's just like a content piece for them. And yeah, it's aligned with their mission and it's in their values to talk about it, but it's also not helping anything. Like it's not help. For me to plug into that is not helpful. And for most people to like pay attention, that is not helpful when we have so many other things that we have the potential to impact. So I get why this stuff
I hear what you mean. No, I get what you're saying. I do that a lot. Like I don't on my morning show because I do deal with news, and my framework is to generally de-stress news. Like I generally try to take whatever fiat stories are getting people jacked and try and reverse them to say and show why it's good for Bitcoin. But there is a whole genre of story that I don't involve myself with. I don't do any mass shootings.
right.
Nothing to add. You know what I mean? Like they're not like I don't need to tell you it's civilizational rot. And indeed,
Right.
There's no way to spin that. You know what I mean? Into like a good news for Bitcoin story. And I agree. There's a whole bunch of stories, and you see it sometimes. You know how everyone becomes like an expert on nuclear bombs or an expert on drone warfare because there was some mass casualty event that everybody now has to become an expert on Iran or Ukraine, or basically, you know, turning death into a commodity for content creation. And there is, I know what you mean.
And it honestly, it's tying back to when I first came on, right? It's a bit of a scarcity mindset, and it keeps you focused on the negative, and it like with Bitcoin, you can have abundance through scarcity, but with all of this other stuff, you can just have like depression through scarcity. You know what I mean? Like all you focus on starts to become the negative stuff, and what's the next big thing to be triggered about. And you know, that's kind of the work that I've been doing on myself, is like reflecting on things. Like when I'm reacting to something, it's a reflection of me and the way I feel, not what's going on in the world. So something about the ostrich thing, like I'm not evolved enough as a mind to be able to like contribute to this story without it negatively affecting me. So I'm like still got work to do, because I like looked at that originally and I was just like hit with this tightness in my chest and this like almost PTSD type of thing. And I was just like, I can't watch any of this stuff. Like I can't pay attention to this. So like, I feel like for people to be critical of like Pierre Polyev, it is an abundance. There's a scarcity mindset, because if you look at all the other things Pierre is trying to do and what he can eventually do if he focuses on the right messages and gets elected, then you know he's going to be able to affect change in certain areas like this. That's the hope that some people have, but maybe that's all BS, and maybe that is not, you know, maybe when he gets in, if he gets in, it's just going to become more status quo. But like I just feel like harping on Polyev for not focusing on this issue, and even the trucker convoy stuff, like the court case that was going on with Chris Barber and Tamara Lynch and stuff. There's, and even in some ways like Bitcoin stuff, like there's just some things that don't have as big of a impact for him to be, you know, focusing his time on
and
when
then,
we have like so much unemployment, so much inflation, so many people using food banks, like the amount of people suffering, human like Canadians suffering, is the stuff he talks about and focuses on, which I think is probably what he should be doing.
and we even had the ultimate back at you, or the ultimate, I guess, response to the truckers today. I mean, it's been around for a while, but the Nunchuck guys reissued their letter to the Superior Court of Ontario today, which was, if you remember, it was, we're here for you when debasement actually hits Canada. Everything you asked us for, we can't do because we're non-custodial wallet. Sorry, peace out. And ultimately, that is the only response to any of this stuff. And when I see, the ostrich farm part of the story is property rights, right? They
Yeah.
were still being threatened with arrest for even being there. And then, of course, the story in British Columbia, again, with the native title over property in Richmond, and people talking about the Cowichan tribe that took control. Of course, the same as in Kamloops. So now you have a bunch of hotels that refused rooms to people coming to protest the Kamloops stuff. But ultimately, it is property rights. And to turn this into a story about Bitcoin, I think we see it. I mean, what is the most overdrawn property market in all of Canada? Now, it sounds bad for Canadians that the property rights and property values and everything is getting obliterated in British Columbia, but ultimately it was a disease anyway. And not that I want your ownership and title to start going to fictitious third-party government institutions or native tribes and held, collectively like that. But nevertheless, I think all of us in Bitcoin recognize that Canada has a very, very tough threshold to pass through to reach a point of psychological understanding of Bitcoin for the whole polity, for the country. And that is because the land and real estate values are kind of front and center in Canada, and especially with that generation that did so well in British Columbia and now coming against this stuff. So, seeing property rights in British Columbia, it's like, there's a quote from Mark Twain, and it's a great one, right? It's that something along the lines of humans can't tell the difference between good news and bad. That we're not capable. We think something's good news or we think something's bad news, and we react to it as if it's good or bad news. But you don't really know what kind of news it is, good or bad. It's a lot longer, a lot later, right? It's just not that obvious. And so things that seem bad, right? Property rights getting abridged in British Columbia, property rights getting abridged with the ostriches, and all of this chaos. Well, the upside is Canada has put too much value on private property anyway. I don't mean private, I mean real estate, not private property as a subject. Of course, Bitcoin is also private property, but as real estate. So, do you see it that way at all? Is that part of why you just, it's better to not look at this stuff and just move on as Bitcoiners?
Well, I see it, like, I understand your perspective. Now that you've said it, it makes sense. It's, there's the same type of Buddhist philosophy that I've heard repeated hundreds of times on the meditation apps I use. The first person to ever use it was like trying to be creative. And then I realized like all the meditation apps use this Buddhist philosophy parable. And it's like the farmer that, a wild horse shows up to his pen one day. I'm gonna butcher it myself, but the wild horse comes in, and then the neighbor's like, "Oh my God, what good luck! You have another horse. It just came for you for free." And then he's like, "Oh, maybe." And then the next day, his son is riding the wild horse, and he falls off, and he breaks his leg. And then the person comes to him and says, "Oh my God, what bad luck you have! Like, I can't believe that wild horse came here. Now your son's leg is broken." And he says, "Oh, maybe." And then the next day, the conscription happens, and the army comes, and they can't take his son because he has a broken leg. And then the person comes back and says, "Oh, what good luck you have! The horse broke your son's leg." And then he's like, "Maybe." So it's kind of the same thing. It's like we don't really know what's going to happen with all this crazy stuff going on right now with the property rights in Canada. It could end up being an event that does pop the property bubble and then helps people understand that it's not a scarcity mindset that's their problem. It's the inflation. It's all the money printing. It's inflation of the assets, because this is a rigged system against the average person. And all this money printing is actually a way to enrich the people at the top. Even the politicians that claim that they're doing it because they care about you, they're benefiting themselves through inflating all their assets. So when the assets start to come down, maybe they're going to get more responsible with the spending, and maybe they're going to kind of look behind the scenes and say, okay, yeah, it is too much money printing. We have to stop doing this. And eventually it feels like that's going to happen anyways, just because of like the AI stuff that's coming, and maybe the productivity increasing that's going to happen from the AI enhancements. Productivity enhancements will force prices lower, or there will be a collapse of some sort. So it seems like it's going to happen anyways. But in some ways, it's like kind of also just part of the trend of Canada of like property rights are not as strong here. And this is just another signal that, yeah, Canada does not have strong property rights. And if you really care about property rights, you should be somewhere like Texas that has a long history of protecting property rights. So in some ways, like not paying attention to this story is not smart, because this is like could directly affect anybody that owns any kind of property, including Bitcoin. And it's one of the reasons why we all got kind of more interested in politics. You know, most Bitcoiners who are now somewhat interested in politics after the convoy, because of free speech and property rights were kind of like at risk there, even more than ever before. So it's just the same trajectory and trend, and why people like Jeff Booth probably had to leave, because they see the writing on the wall. And
yeah, it was easier for me. Yeah, Bitcoin was only a couple $100 when I left, so they had nothing to take. You know, it was fine. I would, if I was still known to Canadian authorities at this point, I would have, you know, very different thoughts about how I think about all these things. So there you go. We got to get Viva Fry on the show. We would love to catch up over some of the stuff and talk a little bit about what's going on over at Rumble with the Bitcoin stuff. That's always exciting. A Canadian company we've forgotten about, but one of the biggest Canadian Bitcoin companies around now, I guess. Huh?
Yeah. And also Viva was like, one of the cool things that he was saying about going to Lugano was it's the first time he's ever really got the difference between crypto and Bitcoin. Because before the Lugano conference, for whatever reason, he just always kind of like interchanged Bitcoin and crypto. And he understood from some of the talks and some of the guests he had on the show during Lugano that the conditions that Bitcoin were created under are unable to be reproduced. And it was the immaculate conception sort of idea. I don't know if he used that word. That's our word, but he grokked it, that he got that, like, okay, Bitcoin, the creation of Bitcoin was a unique and special thing, and that's what separates it from all the other cryptos, because there can never be a truly anonymous, decentralized, anonymous founder that releases a decentralized cryptocurrency with no incentives for the founders and the VCs that back it. You know, it's like it's a true open source internet currency, which is totally different than everything else. So that was really hopeful that he got that. And you know, I started to think about, like, why do I want to influence these politicians and stuff, right? And I even think about that now, and it's like, what's the point? I think me and you had this conversation actually on the hike that day we walked back from the Montreal conference. It's like, what happens if I become an influential kind of like resource for Pierre Poilievre, and he becomes prime minister, and then he texts me every time he has a question about Bitcoin, I can help him out. Like, who gives a shit, right? Like, why does that matter? Like, is there like, what part of this desire to influence journalists and politicians towards Bitcoin is the true, genuine, no ulterior motive passion for free speech, property rights, sound money, and helping to fix the money and fix the world, versus what percentage of it is me being like, fulfilling some ego desire to want to be relied on by these influential people. And like, the more I kind of just have to realize, like, hey, I'm just the potato. Like, who gives a shit
potato.
about me?
You're the
You know, like,
potato.
I'm the potato. So the most important thing is not me becoming an influential resource for Pierre Polyev or Viva Fry or whoever, but them understanding Bitcoin the way that we understand Bitcoin, and then hopefully them being truthful enough people that value the same things that we all value. Not all. There's a lot of people in Bitcoin that aren't in it because of free speech and property rights and stuff. But most people that are into Bitcoin for those types of reasons, like, you know, like, I'm trying to even think of John Seth. Like, John Seth's not a libertarian. He's not an Austrian guy. He thinks the Austrians and the libertarians all nuts, but he's into free speech and property rights and, you know, all these things. So some of it's just being a little bit of a contrarian, but the folks that really do care about this stuff, just being a resource for them and trying to show them, well, maybe the door to like come down and ask questions and learn, and then hopefully it might influence the way that they talk about Bitcoin or even other related policies. And, you know, maybe I don't need to be the one doing it.
You're the potato.
Yeah, just a potato rolling down the hill.
Potato going across the street, you know. No, that's it, you know. And I mean, those are the conversations I had with Viva in the early days, where he was suspicious of all of it, rightly suspicious of all of it. And, you know, I was trying to explain to him that Bitcoin had these special qualities that made it different. So great news that he's seeing. It's not something you can teach people, I don't think. It has to be perceived on their own. I think going to physical events is one way to perceive it. You can tell collectively there's a different vibe between Bitcoiners and crypto people.
Well, that definitely, I think, helped. But like, one of the things is, right, like, getting them talking to more Bitcoiners for sure. Like Jasmine Lane, when she came on that stream we did with Kyle, and I think you were on that, weren't
I was
you?
on, yeah. It was a late night stream. It was
the late night stream. And then, you know, after that, she was like kind of curious, like, what do these crazy Bitcoiners have to say? Because a lot of the stuff they said is kind of like what I think. So then, you know, she had me on her show, and I talked for an hour and a half about central banking and the Bank of Canada and stuff with her. And now she's like buying Bitcoin and stuff, and she's getting into Bitcoin. Same with Pleb and some of these influential people. So I'm like, you know, I'm kind of becoming friends with people that have a following in this conservative group. And, you know, I don't think about it. And so it's like, I thought about this as I was coming home from Lugano, and I was kind of reflecting, because my wife said to me when we were walking home one night, like, hey, do you realize like how big of a deal it is that they asked you to do this recording? Because I did this this thing, this TV show that they did at the POW Media Space, super professional, like nice media crew there. It was like a cipher tank, they called it. And, you know, like, it was like I was one of the judges. So it was fun. It was just like, you know, a fun media thing to do. And it was like, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, whatever. It's just another thing I'm doing. And Liz was like, well, no, like, what if it's big? What if it actually means something? And I was like, oh shit, like, I guess it could. And I never thought about it like that. And so, like, all these things that happen where I'm doing it for the fun and the passion, and just because I share the same interests with people like you, and, you know, me and you are doing this podcast now, and like, you're a very influential person in Bitcoin, and you've done all this stuff, and I just like kind of just take it for granted, like, hey, like, I'm just talking to Nolan, my buddy Nolan. But like, that's kind of like where I'm trying to do this whole like StackSat stay humble part, and like stay humble and like be the potato, because there's a lot of people that are trying to get to the level of where I am currently in Bitcoin. And like, I should appreciate more that I got a friend, Nolan, who wants to do a podcast with me on Canada. And, you know, like, I had dinner with Adam Back, just me and him and my wife. And we were kind of like had a 2-hour conversation about life and traveling and stuff. He shared the Uber ride home with us, and we had dinner. And I was like, that's actually like, some people is like their dream to do that. In Bitcoin. Like, some people's dream of like, oh my God, if I could ever have dinner with Adam Back. And I'm sure I was like that like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, the whole thing is like I've been trying to appreciate more the things that I am doing and just be okay with letting go of control of the outcome of like, oh, but Pierre Polyev is not fully into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's adjacent. He's having the conversations. He's supportive of us. I'm like, he's not texting me about Bitcoin. But then, like, if that was the case, then 2 years later down the road, I would just be the same way about it. I'd just be like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, Pierre's texting me again about Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just the same way I'm having dinner with Adam back tonight. Like, no big deal. It's just life.
I give myself that perspective, even just doing little things like, I work from home, obviously, but just going out, picking up my kids, and it's an average day, but I've got a beautiful wife and beautiful children, and it's like my average day is still better than most people's, So
Yeah.
you got to take that perspective, you got to enjoy that, because it's the only way to get through 95,000 US trash token Bitcoin and market crashes and stuff like that, because it's not all fun and games. I got denied from the cipher tank, so we're still bitter about it. So there's wins
That's
and
another
there's losses,
thing, right? That, like, even my buddy Nolan, who's got such a great life and he's connected to all these cool people, didn't get
Denied,
into Cypher Tank. Denied for
denied.
Cypher Tank. And then there was like hundreds of, and it's funny, I'm not going to spoil who won or anything like that, but one of the winners of the Cypher Tank was this don't want to say too much because I don't think they want me to say, but he was just a little bit upset that he didn't win the grand prize. So there was like 3 prizes, right? And I was like, oh man, like, I was thinking about it when he was kind of talking to me about it. I'm like, that's exactly the way that I felt about, like, not getting invited to Jack Dorsey's private hike in Madeira. When I was there and I'm like, oh, I'm so close to all these people. Like, I like Jack Dorsey. I respect what he's doing. I wish I was able to go on the hike. Like, oh, I didn't get to go on Jack Dorsey's hike. But it's like, but I'm having dinner with I'm having dinner with Adam, and I'm like having conversations with Preston Pish, like we're buddies, and like, me and whoever are texting all the time. So it's like, wait, I'm just like, I got to focus on, I'm not going to win everything. I'm not going to get everything, but I got to be grateful, constantly grateful for where I am and what I do have. And it was from the book, The Big Leap, actually, this sort of concept came from, to avoid the temptation and the habit of entitlement, and to always reframe the entitled feelings as gratitude. And that's what I realized, like, habitually we just do. It's just like, oh, well, I've been in this space so long, like I do this and I do. Of course I would be asked to be on Cypher Tank, as a judge, because I'm invested on these companies and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wait, that's like, is a little bit of entitlement. It's a little bit of ego. It's a little bit of not appreciating the position that I am in. So as I'm like, trying to do this journey of not being in scarcity, which the Bank of Canada and the Canadian press has so kindly told us what to do, I think it is a good advice, and to try to be in this abundance mindset as much as you possibly can.
That's why I've been thinking of the potato thing. It's still the bitterness.
Oh, it's such a great analogy, the potato thing, right? Because like think of all the great things that you are doing, that you have done, and that you will do, and that your life is, right? And it's like this one little stupid thing that was like pissing you off. So the kid was like, upset that he didn't win the top thing, but he got money from the show, and like he got me as an investor. And I was like thinking about it, I was like, man, it's so funny, like Nolan didn't get accepted, and he's probably like just feels the same way that this kid does, who got money and got on the show but didn't win, and was like, oh, I wish I got the better prize. I was like, if we all kind of do that, right? It's just we all have to stay humble and be the potato.
You got it. Well, it was great. I love hearing about Logano. Remember we went on the walk up the hill?
Yeah.
I had a friend who grew up on the top of that hill. Well, that's where he's from, Logano. So the whole family
cool
was back there, and So if I do go back, I'll give him a call and go check out all the palm trees on the mountains. We love it there.
Wish we had a picture because I had the hobo bag, the hobo hike. I carried my lunch in it. That's why. That's why I was eating
exactly.
on.
He was when we climbed the mountain in Montreal. He had the actual stick with the sack on it, carrying all of it. It was a good pick.
The hobo hike. It's great.
All right, my man. Well, it's the weekend. We're going to enjoy the weekend. We're going to have a good time, and we'll be back next week. There'll be plenty of crazy stuff going on in Canada for us to cover. I can't wait. So thanks for coming today, my man.
Thanks for inviting me.
And thanks everyone in the audience. I appreciate all of you for coming. I hope you all have a great weekend. When this show ends, I'm going to be putting up an ad. It is one of our Roxham TV ads, all about Bitcoin denominated markets. And then after that, you shall see the screen. Thanks for watching, but I want to tell you personally, thanks for watching. So there you go, everyone. Have a great weekend. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Apparently, I do not have the ad because this is a different background than, well, I have one ad. It's not the same ad. I'm going to play that one, though. Peace.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin! Come on, little buddy! Bitcoin! I need you! Don't go!
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.